I get it, dude. The whole creepy silent mime gimmick, I mean, it's very effective. And the blood is a nice touch also.
Without a shadow of a doubt, the Terrifier films are a blunt revival of the slasher genre through the haunting figure of Art the Clown. Written and directed by Damien Leone, the series began with Art's debut in the 2008 short film The Ninth Circle and 2011 short Terrifier, which were part of the All Hallows Eve anthology. The character then evolved through the feature films Terrifier, Terrifier 2, and Terrifier 3, with each installment amplifying the chaos and carnage that the silent, mime-like clown brought on Halloween night.
I was making my first short film, and it was going to be my calling card as a director and as a special makeup effects artist. So I was just putting as many crazy things into that short film as I possibly could. And I was like, we got to throw a clown in there. I always thought there was something cool I could do with a clown, something a little different that I'd never seen before. And it just slowly evolved into what you know now as Art the Clown.
Art's character grows across the films from a mere silent killer to a symbol of pure evil with almost mythical qualities. And the series' ability to blend humor, terror, and a critique of voyeuristic entertainment reflects a storytelling approach that is both self-aware and unapologetically brutal. The first movie set the stage with a raw and gritty aesthetic. It leveraged its shoestring budget to craft visceral horror scenes that resonate with an authenticity, often missing in higher budget productions. Art, portrayed by David Howard Thornton from this movie onwards, emerges as an icon of terror, silent yet expressive. His horrifying antics are not just about slaughter, but about bringing a darkly theatrical quality to the streets he terrorizes.
It just happens organically for me. I've always been like, I'm not one of those actors that has to like go into like the method process or anything like that to get into it. I can just tread on or off. Really what helps me is just being in the costume and the makeup. As soon as I get all that on, I can just go right into it.
You guys are both big horror movie fans. Can you tell us some of your favorite films and how you became interested in horror movies?
Rosemary's Baby, The Lost Boys, Jaws is probably my favorite movie of all time. Tom Savini, who is the makeup effects artist on Dawn of the Dead, Creepshow. There was a movie called Screen Greats, and it shows all of Tom Savini's special effects behind the scenes stuff. And when I saw like someone making the monsters, it just blew my mind because I'd never seen that before. And from that point on, I just wanted to start experimenting with special makeup effects and making monsters.
I would say my top 5 are in no particular order: Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, Halloween, Exorcist, and Omen.
With a slightly larger budget and more refined script, Terrifier 2 expanded on this foundation with a broader scope and a deeper exploration of Art's backstory, introducing characters who are directly affected by his previous rampage and some new ones that add to the mythos and ultimately redefine the series.
I had so much fun, but even Terrifier 2 was so much fun. It's just like it was bigger in scope, and I got to do some really cool things in that. Like one of my favorite scenes of the film was the Clown Cafe scene. I had so much fun in that scene. It was so much fun because we had a lot of the fans there that were part of the Indiegogo campaign, and so it was fun to have people come in with fresh eyes, and you would see their excitement, and it just added a new energy on set. And it was the week before everything shut down for COVID too, so we had no idea what was about to happen. We didn't know the world was about to go upend on us, and so we're like, we're just having fun, and nothing prepares you to light a human being on fire. That was a wild day for me. I literally lit a human being on fire, and that was like, I had fun. I had to call my dad up that day. I was like, Dad, guess what I did? Here I am in my 40s. I'm like, Dad, I shot a Tommy gun, and I lit somebody on fire.
The recently released Terrifier 3 continues directly from the aftermath of the second film, intertwining past events with the present horrors for the principal characters. The Christmas setting juxtaposes a traditionally joyous time with brutal horror, a stark contrast that intensifies the chilling atmosphere.
What's the likelihood that we'll get another holiday?
Oh, who knows? That's up to Damien. I mean, I don't think he wants to get that campy with it, making him like a holiday killer or something like that. It's just like we just thought Christmas would be really fun. But I think it'll be funny if he does Arbor Day or something like that. Flag Day. Woo! Flags.
The series stands as a significant contribution to the horror genre, redefining modern slasher films with a character who is as enigmatic as he is horrifying. Art the Clown's legacy is not just in the blood he spills, but in the fear he instills, a perfect embodiment of the genre's potential to explore the darkest corners of human fear and fascination with violence. The series not only revitalizes classic horror tropes, but also innovates them, ensuring that Art the Clown will be remembered as a modern horror icon for years to come. Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we're going to be breaking down and reviewing all 3 Terrifier films.
I used to dress up like different characters, especially Joker. I was a big Joker person growing up, so I was like, to see kids dressing up as me for Halloween and stuff like that's a trip.
Made on a budget of $35,000 and raking in 10 times its cost at the box office, the first Terrifier is a raw, unapologetic throwback to the golden age of slasher horror, unfiltered and ruthless in its execution. Directed by Damien Leone, this low-budget horror gem brings an intensity to the genre, focusing less on complex narrative and more on creating an unrelenting atmosphere of dread, violence, and shock.
Move on. That's Damien, the director.
Hi.
And that's the bad guy.
Hi. How are you? I'm gonna kill some people tonight. It'll be fun.
The film kicks off with a classic horror setup, a TV interview with the lone survivor of a massacre by Art the Clown, setting a grim, unsettling tone right from the start. Monica, the host, questions the traumatized survivor of what's known as the Miles County Massacre. The survivor, visibly scarred, identifies her attacker as Art the Clown and insists that she witnessed his death. This chilling introduction doesn't just establish the terror that Art has already unleashed, but hints that, despite what the survivor believes, this nightmare is far from over. Unbeknownst to her, Art watches the interview, seething before destroying the TV in a fit of rage. This scene sets the stage for Art's horrifying return as he meticulously prepares his clown makeup and gathers an assortment of crude weapons, signaling the onset of a gruesome night.
He's dead. I saw it happen.
The film then shifts focus back to Monica, who, after the interview, disparages her guest and revels in the potential fame the sensational story might bring her.
Exactly. We finally figured out the formula for success. Faceless victims and a host in jeopardy.
Her joy is short-lived, however, as she's brutally murdered by the interviewee she mocked, illustrating a grim turn of events and setting a precedent for the film's brutal tone. Meanwhile, Tara and Dawn, 2 friends recovering from a night out, encounter Art, who unnervingly watches them with a bag full of weapons. Despite Tara's reservations, Dawn flirts with him, a decision that marks the beginning of their terrifying ordeal.
Sorry.
Their night takes a darker turn at a local pizza restaurant, where Art's disturbing behavior escalates quickly, leading to his expulsion from the diner. The young women then discover their car vandalized and call Tara's sister for help, unaware that their night of horror has only just begun.
Dawn and I are sort of stranded right now.
And I was kind of hoping you could pick us up. I have to be up in 5 hours, Tara.
Inside the restaurant, a worker uncovers the grisly murder of their manager, transformed into a jack-o'-lantern, a signature display of Art's macabre handiwork. Art's violence spirals as he mercilessly kills him, his brutality leaving no room for escape. Tara and Dawn's plight deepens as their attempt to seek refuge leads them into further danger. Tara finds herself in a dilapidated building with a deranged woman, adding layers of insanity and despair to the evening.
This is my daughter, Emily. Say hello to the pretty young lady.
As Art continues his pursuit, Tara's attempts to hide and defend herself prove futile. In one of the film's most harrowing scenes, she's forced to watch Dawn's gruesome death, sawn in half by the clown. Despite a desperate fight for survival, Tara is ultimately killed, her screams echoing into the night. The narrative then converges as Vicky, Tara's sister, arrives, lured into the nightmare by deceptive texts from Art, only to find a trail of bodies. The climax unfolds with a brutal confrontation between Vicky and Art, punctuated by brief moments of hope as Vicky tries to escape. Art's relentless cruelty is on full display as he runs her over with a car, culminating in a standoff with police, where he seemingly ends his own life. However, the film closes on a dark note as Art awakens in the coroner's office, alive and more menacing than ever, setting the stage for his continued reign of terror.
We didn't know what Terrifier wasn't Terrifier when we were shooting the original Terrifier. It was just this weird indie killer clown movie, and there had to be a lot of trust going on. It was easier for part 2 because everybody knew what Terrifier was, but trying to convince Dave to do that, that was a conversation. Originally in the script, he wasn't supposed to be naked. He was wearing her body parts over the clown costume, but as we got closer, I was like, that's not gonna look as cool and as disturbing as if he was naked and bloody. And then this is Dave's first movie, and I call up Dave, and I tell him the idea. I'm like, well, what do you think? I'm like, I really think it's gonna be a lot more disturbing if you do that. And there's like a little bit of a pause on the phone, and then he goes, okay.
The film wastes no time diving into the dark, relentless horror, and Leone doesn't hold back, with art's brutal methods as horrifyingly creative as they are brutal. It's raw, unapologetic, and doesn't shy away from testing the limits of its audience's tolerance.
And I get asked a lot, are there boundaries for me? Is there lines I won't cross? And I say yes all the time. Not that I think filmmakers, they should be able to show whatever they want, as long as you're not really harming somebody, obviously. But yeah, I'll write a scene and I'll usually take it 5 steps further and push it on paper maybe, like how far can I really take this? And then I get to a point where I'm like, no, I'm gonna really just alienate half the audience. At some point, I'm just gonna go into an extreme level of distaste, and it's just not fun anymore. But I like to get right up to the line, or maybe just step right over it and show you something that you're not gonna get in, your average rated R horror movie, so.
Leone's use of practical effects is another standout feature, grounding its over-the-top kills in a visceral reality that make art's brutality hit harder, and giving the violence a disturbing sense of realism that's often lost in modern horror, which relies too heavily on CGI.
I always say I really liked Brooke's kill because they used, right? I'm right at that, right? You used for the bubbling on her face.
I did, yeah.
Because it was such a low budget when they threw acid on her face.
And you need to be safe.
Damien, yeah, exactly. Damien was blowing into a tube to look like her face was bubbling from the acid, and the bubbling was, and I was blown away by the just the innovativeness of having
So was Barbara.
So yeah, there's so many good kills, and just with these practicals, how can you not appreciate them all?
But it's not all senseless violence. Art's personality, as sadistic as it is playful, brings a dark humor to the film that keeps it from being just another bloodbath. He's a performer at heart, laughing in silence as he torments his victims, throwing in disturbing gestures and theatrics that make his acts feel like a twisted show. Yet for all his antics, there's a sense of unpredictability that keeps the tension high. You never quite know if he'll keep toying with his victim or finish them off in the blink of an eye. This makes Art an untamed force that revels in his own hostility.
In general, I love comedy. That's always been my thing, and I was watching.
Top comedians: Buster Keaton, Charlie
Buster
Chaplin,
Keaton, Mr. Bean. My other aunt gifted me a whole set of Mr. Bean tapes when I was about 12 or 13 years old, and I would just sit there and watch them over and over and over and over and over and over. And I had always wanted to play a character like Mr. Bean, one of those silent, mischievous characters. And so when this opportunity came up, because I had seen All Hallows Eve, so I knew that character, and I remember even watching All Hallows Eve before I even knew about Terrifier, and I was like, oh my God, what a great character. That's like an evil Mr. Bean. I would love to have an opportunity to play a character like that one day. And then that opportunity came up, and I'm like, oh my God, yes, put me in, coach.
The Terrifier may lack the depth of plot or character development some audiences crave, but that's hardly the point. Leone's intention is clear. The film is meant to disturb, unnerve, and thrill with a primal ferocity. It's stripped down to the essentials of horror: fear, shock, and relentless tension. There's no backstory or motive for Art, no justification for his actions. He exists only to terrify, embodying the primal fear of being hunted by something that simply wants to watch you suffer.
Gore.
Super, uber violent. Yeah. So I gravitated toward violence for some reason. As you can see, I still do in my work. Yeah, I don't know. It's something very profound, and always as a kid, I was just, even when I was obsessed with playing with G.I. Joes and stuff. But all of my G.I. Joes, I would cover them in red marker or red paint. I was always just putting blood all over my action figures. So I was just obsessed with gore from a very young age, yeah.
And this is a great we have a brief philosophical detour, because there's a lot of young kids who have been coming to Silver Scream, and of course there's different schools of thought about at what age someone should see this or that. So, certainly by the sound of it and by the looks of your career, your mom introducing you to this stuff at a very young age didn't screw you up for the worst. It screwed you up in a great way.
It's not for the faint of heart, but for horror fans looking for a modern slasher with guts, literally and figuratively, Terrifier delivers with chilling efficiency.
It's horrific.
It's terrible. Can't wait
I've never seen a kill like this ever in a horror film before. Like when he wrote this, I was like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, this is bad. This is just bad. It's not funny. It is just gross and disturbing. And that's what got to me too. I was like, oh my God, imagine this actually happening to a real person. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's cruel.
Yeah.
It's cruel.
You might have some fun watching the scene too.
Made on an increased budget of $250,000 and pulling in over $15 million at the box office, Terrifier 2 takes the chaos and violence of the first film and cranks it up to new, horrifying heights, expanding out the clown's twisted universe in a sequel that's bigger, bloodier, and bolder. The film builds on the foundation of its predecessor, weaving a larger story around Art's mayhem, while introducing deeper themes and characters that give the franchise a new sense of purpose. It's not just a rehash of the original, but an evolution.
3, 2, 1, wake up!
Phoenix.
Oh, baby!
Yes. Where's that wig when you need it?
We got plenty of wigs.
The sequel picks up directly after the events of the first film, with Art mysteriously resurrected to continue his Halloween night rampage. This time, however, the story brings in new protagonists, including Sienna Shaw, a young woman struggling with a family tragedy and haunted by strange visions. Sienna's arc gives the sequel a grounded emotional core that was really missing in the first film, as her battle with Art becomes as much about tapping into her father's legacy as it is about survival. Her brother Jonathan, who's disturbingly fascinated by Art, adds a layer of mystery, hinting at a supernatural connection between Art the Clown and the Shaw family. The twist opens the door to a broader mythology for Art, establishing him as something more than just a murderous clown.
3, 2, 1, bang! Got it!
Wow, that was danger close.
With Art immediately resuming his spree of terror, he heads to a laundromat to clean his bloody outfit, encountering a ghostly girl in clown makeup who is invisible to others, before killing a confused bystander. A year later, Sienna Shaw is preparing for Halloween, crafting a warrior princess costume of a character made for Sienna by her late father, an artist who passed away from a brain tumor that gave him vivid hallucinations. Her brother Jonathan, on the other hand, disturbingly wants to dress as Art the Clown, sparking concern from Sienna and their mother Barbara.
It's just a costume.
How would you feel if, God forbid, he attacked someone in our family and people celebrated him? That's basically what you're doing.
Following an intense dream she has about Art, Sienna wakes up to find the wings in her warrior angel costume have spontaneously combusted. Of course, her mother doesn't believe this and blames her for leaving the candles burning overnight.
You are going to kill us one of these days between your chemicals and your heat guns and staying up till 4 o'clock in the f***ing morning doing God only knows what.
On Halloween Day, Jonathan encounters Art at school with a ghostly girl dissecting a dead possum, a sighting that leads to a suspension, with everyone thinking that he was the one responsible.
Mom, Go to your room! I don't want to hear another word out of you until I say so.
Sienna also shockingly crosses paths with the clown as she looked for replacement wings for her costume at a shop. While he doesn't harm her and actually lets her go, Art then kills the shopkeeper and savagely attacks Sienna's friend Allie and her mother, using her head as a macabre candy bolt for trick-or-treaters. As the night unfolds, tensions at home escalate when Jonathan, frustrated from his suspension and the fact that his mother doesn't believe him, lashes out at Barbara before vandalizing the family car.
You're such a bitch.
Unfortunately, Barbara's attempt to clean the mess leads to a fatal confrontation with Art, who shoots her with a shotgun, and when Jonathan returns home, he's captured by the clown. The terror rises at a Halloween party where Sienna has a panic attack, exacerbated by a vision of the ghostly clown girl. The night spirals out of control as her friend Brooke and her boyfriend Jeff are brutally murdered by Art, while Sienna, lured by a call from who she believed to be Jonathan, ventures into an abandoned carnival and its eerie attraction, the Terrifier. Inside, Sienna confronts Art and attempts to end his reign of terror, but is stabbed with the sword that she made. However, in a miraculous and almost mythological turn, she's resurrected by the sword, which she uses to finally cut his head off. The film concludes with a shocking post-credits scene where Victoria, the survivor from the first film, now institutionalized, horrifyingly gives birth to Art's head, hinting at the clown's return.
You okay? I'm coming in. I'm coming to help you.
Olga, tell us what's happening.
Tell us.
Honestly?
Take us through the history of this.
Every single time that we put this costume on, we're totally piecing it together
with duct tape,
flex tape, super glue, hot glue, hope, prayer.
In Terrifier 2, the characters are a major reason why the film is a step above the original. Sienna Shaw, played brilliantly by Lauren Levera, is a standout, a layered, resilient character who adds a touch of mythic heroism to the franchise's brutal, chaotic world. Levera delivers a subtle, compelling performance, making Sienna a protagonist that viewers can root for and connect with on a deeper level. She balances vulnerability and resilience in a way that feels incredibly grounded. All of this makes her arc feel genuine, and a transformation from a young woman trying to survive her grief to a warrior confronting a supernatural evil is thrilling to watch. This infusion of mythology into Sienna's character brings an unexpected depth, elevating her from mere final girl status to something more significant, a reluctant warrior stepping into her father's vision for her.
But horror have always loved. My mom got me into horror, her father got her into horror. My first ever horror film was Poltergeist that I watched, and ever since then I've been terrified of clowns, and it's kind of ironic that this is the franchise I'm a part of. But thanks, Dave. So I'm very lucky to be a part of a genre that I literally can watch at any point. I'm always in the mood to watch horror, so I'm just incredibly fortunate.
In a supporting role, Elliot Fulham plays Jonathan, her younger brother, whose morbid fascination with Art the Clown, stemming from Jonathan's need to understand his father's sketches, gives his character an edgy complexity.
Okay, so honestly, I will do anything that Damien wants to do. It's always a fantastic time being on the set of Terrifier. And the whole cast and crew is just fantastic.
Did you see it fall out of the neck?
I'm so glad I came up with that idea.
That was a great idea you had, wasn't it?
Great job, buddy.
It was good.
The tail's dead.
You want to do one more? Can we do one more?
Jonathan has also suffered from the family's tragic history and shows signs of struggling to cope, and Fulham's performance, while not as solid, complements Levera as they navigate a sibling dynamic that's simultaneously loving and strained.
And that was the hardest role to cast because it's it's a child. They're not, for the most part, not as experienced as an adult, and we're asking them.
Can't work as many hours.
Can't work as many hours, and you can't. I mean, it's an intense role. I mean, physically, mentally, you're asking a child to do a lot of intense stuff. So it was hard. And as soon as we saw him, Elliot was immediately like in the top two, or pretty much one. He was always our favorite. Our big fear was that he was going to be too old, because I originally cast it for a much younger kid. But I was like, man, I love this kid, and he's so good and so charismatic and has amazing energy. But clearly that wasn't an issue. But yeah, so we always wanted to cast Elliot.
Sarah Voigt's Barbara, Sienna and Jonathan's mother, brings a raw intensity to her role, portraying a woman caught between mourning her husband and trying to hold her family together amid her growing frustration. On the villainous side, David Howard Thornton returns as Art the Clown. Art is a character who doesn't speak, yet Thornton infuses him with an expressive, pantomime-like quality that makes his malevolence disturbingly playful. Thornton's wild eyes and exaggerated motions give Art a chilling presence that's more horrifying because of his silence. He's not just a villain, he's a showman, and Thornton manages to strike a balance between horror and dark humor that feels as unique as it is terrifying.
I mean, I'm very much inspired by the silent film actors, horror actors, like Lon Chaney Sr. is one of my favorite, and The Phantom and The Hunchback, all those movies. But in terms of the your acting, I mean, what you bring to it, that's all your personal, Chaplin and Buster Keaton and your influences.
Plus, I'm a big Warner Brothers fan too. I'm like, I love that. I kind of looked at it as art as kind of like being horror's version, like of Bugs Bunny. So he's that kind of mischievous little scamp that's always just trying to one-up everybody, and that's one of the takes I took to him.
What I really appreciated was that Terrifier 2 did more than just up the body count. The sequel dives into supernatural horror, suggesting Art's powers are more sinister and otherworldly than initially thought.
Well, I knew once I made part 2, I knew I really wanted to explore what the evil was that was resurrecting the boogeyman, because it happens in a lot of franchises, but it's never really explained. They just sort of come back and everybody accepts it. But I was like, that's like a big deal that nobody really ever explores. Like, what is that? And I wanted to do it little by little over the course of a few movies. But I wanted there to be some sort of physical embodiment of that evil.
Where the first Terrifier was lean and straightforward, the sequel takes its time, expanding its world, lore, and characters to deliver a more epic and ambitious story that evolves the series. Leone adds a layer of surrealism to the sequel, especially with Sienna's terrifying dreams and hallucinations, where the line between reality and nightmare become blurred. The climax is a gruesome ride that brings everything together. Art, Sienna, and the haunting legacy of her family all converge in a showdown that's both fierce and surprisingly emotional.
And I grew up loving, there's this horror anthology called Spirits of the Dead from the 70s. It's like 3 short stories, they're Edgar Allan Poe stories, and one of them was directed by Fellini, famous filmmaker, and there's the devil in it is played by a little girl, this creepy little girl in like a white dress, and she's pale. And I was like, ooh, I like that, I want to do my version of that character. And originally she was going to look like the pale girl, but she was going to be in like this yellow sort of sundress and almost like more like a 60s flower kind of getup. And then I think while I was writing it, that Halloween, I started seeing all these pictures like on Instagram and stuff of girls doing their version of Art the Clown. And I was like, I gotta do my female version of Art the Clown before it's like not mine anymore, before it's totally out of my hands. I'm like, I gotta grab that. So that's what made me turn her into a little female Art the Clown.
So an ode to the cosplayers, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
With Sienna as a central hero, Terrifier 2 becomes more than just a series of gruesome kills. It's a battle between light and darkness, courage and fear, where Sienna embodies a mythical strength that transcends the typical horror protagonist, kind of reminding me of Ash from Evil Dead.
I really love the Evil Dead franchise, and I love, the 2013 Evil Dead, and all the practicals in that were amazing, but like one of my favorite parts, it gives me chills every time where she's killing the final boss with the chainsaw. It's just so badass. She's like, eat this, motherfucker. Because I love Final Girl, so it's obviously.
Chainsaws are fun.
Chainsaws are fun.
Made on a budget of $2 million and raking in over $55 million at the box office so far, Terrifier 3 takes the twisted foundation built by the first 2 films and pushes it further, proving there is only one clown that people want to see this October. Sorry, Joko. The third entry follows Art once again, his murderous impulses now clashing with elements of dark mythology and themes of redemption and sacrifice.
And I always loved Christmas horror, the subgenre. But it was also, I didn't want to just keep repeating the same thing over again and just do another Halloween movie. Like, this puts him in a whole new environment, and now we can play with all these classic Christmas tropes, and putting him in those scenarios is hysterical, and it's also really disturbing. And he's already walking around carrying this huge bag of goodies like Santa, so it was just perfect. It seems so natural.
The film opens with a disturbing Christmas scene as Art butchers an unsuspecting family during what should be the most joyful time of the year. This choice of holiday subversion immediately signals that Leone isn't here to repeat the Halloween formula. Instead, he's out to contrast seasonal cheer with pure nightmare fuel. Flashing back to 5 years prior, we see how Art's headless body sought out the asylum, where Victoria Hayes, possessed by the little pale girl from Terrifier 2, gave birth to Art's severed head. The duo orchestrates an escape, resulting in the deaths of a nurse and a guard, before retreating to an abandoned house where they remain dormant for a few years. Fast forward to the present, and we find Sienna now grappling with the psychological aftermath of her last encounter with the clown.
Excuse me.
Haunted by survivor's guilt and visions of her deceased friend Brooke, Sienna's trauma has left her emotionally scarred, while her brother Jonathan is now in college, trying to distance himself from the horrors of their past. Released from the hospital, Sienna moves in with her Aunt Jess and her family, struggling to reconnect with their life, including her brother.
I miss you.
I miss you too. Is everything all right?
Yeah.
However, the dormant horror reawakens when Ard and Victoria disturb from their slumber by unsuspecting workers, marking the beginning of a new massacre. Donning a Santa Claus disguise taken from a victim, Ard unleashes terror at a local mall with explosives hidden in gifts, claiming numerous lives in a chilling spectacle of violence. After spotting who she believed was Art the Clown at the mall, now dressed in a Santa costume, Sienna visits Jonathan at his university, revealing her suspicion that Art is still alive.
Why'd you want to see me right now?
I missed you. I mean, can a sister see your little brother? I was thinking, why don't you come over Aunt Jess's tonight?
Sienna's arrival at Jonathan's university introduces new faces, including Mia, a true crime podcaster, and her boyfriend Cole, Jonathan's roommate, who speculate that Sienna might have actually been involved in the murders. Leone uses the characters to add some meta-commentary, with Mia pushing Sienna and Jonathan to recount the massacre, hinting at the public's morbid fascination with the violence.
I am a true crime enthusiast, and I've actually been following your case in particular for years on my podcast.
Well, I have hideous scars all over my body, and every time I see them, I think of how that sick who ruined our lives is still out there.
Unfortunately, her visit coincides with Art's brutal attack on campus, where he murders Mia and Cole. Terrifier 3 then takes a surreal and intense turn. Sienna dreams of angels crafting a warrior costume, and she awakens to find Art and Victoria have infiltrated her home after rampaging through town. Leone pulls no punches here. Art's attacks on her aunt and uncle is pure chaotic brutality, while Victoria takes a more psychological approach, taunting Sienna by claiming to have also killed her cousin Gabby. In a desperate struggle, Sienna uses her father's sword, a recurring symbol of her lineage and strength to fight back, ultimately decapitating Victoria. This culminates in Art battling Sienna with a chainsaw, before Victoria's blood opens a portal to hell. In a tragic twist, Gabby falls into the portal, pushing Sienna's resolve to its limits. Art also escapes the chaos, boarding a nearby bus, as Sienna, overwhelmed but undeterred, vows to rescue Gabby, setting the stage for another sequel.
But again, because it's such a quick turnaround, especially this one was almost done sort of Roger Corman, old school style. It was like, here's the poster, here's the release date, now go make the movie. And it's like, I didn't even have the script. So I had to write the script, make the movie, everything within like a year. So that was scary. It's like once the train left the station, we couldn't stop. The pros were that I could hire so many more people, especially a makeup effects team for the first time, because I've done the makeup effects on the first two movies. It was really just me and my partner, Phil, who's not a makeup artist. Him and I are the producers. Now, I got to hire Christian Tinsley. So I went from me, this amateur makeup artist, to hiring the guy who did No Country for Old Men, Passion of the Christ, Renfield, Westworld, like a whole new league for me. So that was great. I'm able to focus with my camera department more, really with my actors more on set, because I'm not getting pulled away, having to apply makeup and go back and forth. So that was great. So I think on a technical level, it's by far the most superior film. Whether it's the best is always going to be subjective. There's still people who love part 1, love part 2, so we'll see.
The terror in Terrifier 3 hits hard not just because of the gore, but because Lavera and Fulham bring a real emotional weight to their relationships. They make you believe in the bond between their characters, which makes the horror hit even deeper. Seeing violence is disturbing enough, but watching loved ones suffer is on a different level entirely, and that's where Terrifier 3 digs in. The movie isn't just about shock value, although there's plenty of that. It's about the gut-wrenching cruelty that horror can achieve when it's rooted in real human connections.
Yeah, because I want you to feel something when they're getting killed and not really rooting for them to die, because inevitably you're rooting for Art the Clown to kill people, like Art's the hero of the movie. But I think it's just so much more powerful when you can empathize or sympathize with these characters. It makes the kill scene so much more despicable.
Lavera returns as Sienna Shaw, and as a survivor from Terrifier 2, her character is now grappling with severe trauma, survivor's guilt, and a lingering fear that Art may return. She expertly portrays the internal struggle, balancing her vulnerability with a steely resolve to protect her loved ones, and in a surprising twist, has to deal with the fact that she effectively lost.
But there was a girl, she had to be about 9 years old seeing this movie, and she was crying and hugging my lead actress as if she was meeting Taylor Swift at the end of that movie.
Wow.
Like, it moved her so much. She loved that character, and she loved her before like the movie started. She knew, she was a fan of her from part 2. And just like seeing that, like I literally have chills right now, is like the coolest thing, the most rewarding, gratifying thing ever. Because again, it'll get labeled this ugly movie that despises women. Meanwhile, we have one of the most empowering final girls like in the last 20 years.
David Howard Thornton once again shines as Art the Clown, amplifying the character's evil and chaotic energy. His performance has an almost cartoonish quality here, but it's rooted in a malevolence that makes Art a truly terrifying figure.
I kind of approach Art like how the Joker is, where he sees the world for what it really is. How it's just mass chaos and he revels in it and just like, yeah, this is all one cruel joke. We might as well just laugh, enjoy it. And that's what he does. So this all he does is pure entertainment for himself. Yeah. He finds the enjoyment in everything. Everything's a production for him. He's always constantly performing for this audience of one. Yeah. And it's like and he's the anti-clown in that way. He's here to bring pain and misery to people for his own amusement, while clowns are really supposed to bring joy and happiness for everybody else's amusement. And that's what I love about him. And that's why he's such a selfish little asshole.
Elliot Fulham also returns and captures Jonathan's reluctance to re-engage with his horrific past. His dynamic with Sienna effectively reflects both tension and love, as he's torn between moving on and supporting his sister.
In terms of that gore, obviously it's one of the more celebrated and divisive elements of the horror genre. What do you think both storytellers and audiences get from that aspect, particularly of these films?
Like I said before, it's just simply refreshing. You know, to sit down when you watch this film, you will hear people making a gasp, making a scream. You also hear people laughing. It's a way to bring everybody together through art, no pun intended. But it's truly a really fun film to see in theaters. It's a great experience for sure.
Victoria Hayes, portrayed by Samantha Scafidi, takes on a larger and darker role here. Previously a survivor herself, Victoria is now possessed by the little pale girl, which gives her character a tragic yet hauntingly sinister twist.
Oh, I love them. We go way back since the first film, which is almost like a decade ago, and I hate to say that it was that long ago.
Yeah, no.
But they're the best. We're all like really good friends, and it's just fun. I mean, it is hard because like the nature of horror films, it gets cold and there's a lot of fake blood.
Yeah.
We have fun. There's like a lot of videos that we weren't allowed to release.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yeah, just so we didn't ruin the image of Art the Clown, of us just having fun. So yeah, it's always a good time.
Leone's commitment to practical effects is as brutal and impressive as ever, and the sheer inventiveness of Art's kills keep the intensity high without veering into predictability.
Definitely supervised. I was very, very involved with how these effects were designed and how they were going to be executed, because I would storyboard everything down to a T, so we knew what had to be built, what was going to be shown. And then I still can't keep my hands off. So if you see a lot behind the scenes, I'm still in there putting blood on everything. And I maybe like 1 or 2 days I had to apply Art's makeup because the other guys on set were just so busy with the Victoria makeup and maybe setting up dummies and stuff. So anywhere I could sort of pitch in and help, I did. So it was still fun. I still had to get my hands bloody.
While I definitely preferred the second film more, by intertwining Sienna's personal struggle with Art's supernatural terror, Terrifier 3 raises the stakes, transforming the franchise from a slasher into a twisted epic of supernatural horror.
It's not so much that I'm leaving it open, because I think I could only go so far. When I wrote part 2, I knew where I was going to end the story between Art and Sienna. So it's just a matter of how many movies is it going to take before I reach that climax. And then I also have the actual story that I'm trying to tell. So it's just how much can I pack into that before it's over.
It's a conclusion that dials up the mythological stakes of the Terrifier series, showing that Art's evil runs deeper than simple murder, tied to forces beyond our world. In the end, Terrifier 3 is a solid horror flick. Its phenomenal box office success is proof that people still want real horror during Halloween. For fans of the series, it's a relentless thrill ride that leaves you hungry for more, solidifying Art the Clown as an unstoppable embodiment of fear, chaos, and inescapable evil.
Oh yeah, it excites me too. I mean, I know a few things that he's got planned for part 4 or part 5 or whatever he's going, because he's still trying to I think decide if it's going to be 4 movies or 5 movies, because he's got so many ideas. I'm thinking he's probably going to have 5 movies at least. He's keeping so many things close to his vest right now, so I'm just like, he likes to surprise us as well, so he doesn't tell us things until we read the script and we're like, oh shit, are you kidding me?